The aroma of stale coffee hung in the kitchen like a bad memory, doing nothing to ease the knot twisting in my gut. 3 weeks, that's all they'd given me to grieve my husband of 40 years. 40 years of shared secrets, quiet nights, and unbreakable trust, boiled down to 21 days before my own family decided I was a burden they couldn't afford. I stood there, fingers clenched around the handle of the old percolator, staring into a mug chipped from decades of use, back when life felt solid under my feet. My black morning dress clung to me, unwashed and worn, a relic from the funeral I could barely recall through the haze of loss. I hadn't bothered unpacking the rest of my things. What was the point? At the table, my father cleared his throat with that grating rasp, his spoon clinking against the cereal bowl like a judge's gavel. "You've wallowed long enough, Evelyn," he said, his words cutting sharp. "Grief doesn't put food on the table." My sister, Lydia, didn't even glance up from her smartphone, already primed for her day job at the nonprofit. Crisp blouse, perfect highlights, makeup that screamed effortless control. She was always the one who played the part, like she was in some Hallmark movie where everything tied up neatly. "There's an opening," Lydia said flatly, eyes still on her screen. "Private caregiver for a high-profile client. Mostly companionship. Free room and board. Total discretion." She finally looked at me, her gaze cool and appraising. "Just say the word." I set the percolator down with deliberate slowness, my joints aching from the unspoken rage building inside. "You lined up a job for me?" Lydia shrugged, as if it were no big deal. "You're not pulling your weight. And Dad's social security doesn't stretch to dead weight." Dad grunted in agreement, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. "You're a grown woman, Evelyn. If you'd amounted to anything big, we'd have heard about it by now." I almost let out a bitter laugh, but I swallowed it. They thought I'd frittered away my life in some cushy desk job. Maybe clerical work for the Navy. That's the story I'd fed them. The safe version. The truth? I'd commanded carrier strike groups, orchestrated missions that saved lives and shaped wars. I'd stood in situation rooms with Admiral stars on my shoulders while they wondered why I skipped family reunions. No one had been there for my retirement, no fanfare, no headlines, just a quiet exit into obscurity. I'd been the invisible guardian, and invisibility had become my shadow. Sometimes I murmured, "Silence is the heaviest load we bear." Dad snorted, "Cut the poetry. You taking it or not?" I met Lydia's smug stare, that little twist of her lips saying she'd fixed everything. It wasn't about me, it was about shipping me off. I nodded once. "Fine. Perfect," she said, thumbs flying over her phone. "Details incoming. They want you ASAP." Dad pushed back from the table. "And scrub that sink when you're done. It's been a pigsty since Tuesday." As they shuffled out, I twisted my wedding ring, its gold worn thin from years of quiet endurance. My husband had been the only one who truly knew the battles I'd fought, the weight of decisions that haunted my dreams. Now, even his memory was being shoved aside for their convenience. That night, I packed light, essentials only. Lydia thrust a slim folder at me, address, client's health rundown, like she was dispatching a subordinate. "Don't blow this, Evelyn," she warned. "It's your chance." I said nothing. I didn't owe her words. In my old bedroom, I zipped the bag and listened to the house's silence, no farewells. Just the drone of Dad's TV and Lydia's voice on another call. I walked out that door like I'd never bankrolled their repairs, their vacations, their comforts, always anonymously, always without expectation. They thought they were banishing a husband. They had no clue I'd once held the helm of nations. The wrought iron gates swung open with a whisper, revealing Alexander Hale's estate like a fortress of forgotten sins. Towering columns. Endless lawns clipped to perfection. Fountains gurgling more water than my family's old well ever did. The driveway snaked on forever, flanked by ancient maples that whispered of old Virginia money. Longer than the street I grew up on, I muttered, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles whitened. It reeked of control, not comfort, the kind of place where hospitality masked warnings, "You're here on borrowed ground." The door opened before I could ring the bell. A woman in her late 60s stood there, posture ramrod straight, dressed in a simple black shift, silver hair in a neat chignon. Her eyes scanned me once, keen as a hawk's. "MS. Carter," she said, voice steady and low. "Come in." I nodded, stepping inside without a handshake. The foyer was all marble and echoes, portraits of stern ancestors glaring down from gilded frames. It smelled of lemon polish and inherited power. She led me through corridors that dwarfed my childhood home, stopping in a high-ceiling parlor with heavy drapes. "I'm Margaret Voss, household manager." She folded her hands. "And it's an honor." Admiral. The word hit like a depth charge. I blinked hard. "That title's buried." She didn't push, just inclined her head respectfully. But her eyes held knowledge I wasn't ready to face. The day blurred into orientations, my quarters in the guest wing, a binder on Hale's meds, routines, PT sessions. His suite was off limits until called. That evening, after a solitary meal, Margaret returned, slipping me a folded note. In my room, I unfolded it, one word, scripted neatly. Admiral. No sender. But the implications sank in. Some secrets refused to stay buried. The real gut punch came later. From outside these walls. Margaret knocked at 8, holding her phone. "You should see this." A screenshot of Lydia's Facebook post, her profile pic of some artisanal latte. Caption: "Sis lands on her feet, caretaker gig for a billionaire. Living the dream." Comments piled up, "So proud of your fam. Lydia. Hope she appreciates it." I stared, the screen blurring. "I've stared down missiles," I whispered. "Won't let likes take me out." I handed it back, jaw set. Margaret said nothing, her silence a quiet alliance. I rose before dawn, pacing the Deuce-Lick Gardens to steady my nerves. I'd led invasions, contained chaos, but nothing prepped me for this demotion to nursemaid. A fix for their guilt. Margaret found me by the east window. "He's ready." My hands went clammy. I followed her to the double doors, which creaked open to a dimly lit study, all leather and shadows. He sat in his wheelchair by the bay window, half in light, clad in a cashmere sweater, face etched with lines I recognized from 2 decades past. Alexander's eyes met mine, pulling at old scars like frayed threads. The air thickened, charged with unspoken history. We sat in that loaded quiet for a full minute. "You were a nurse, weren't you?" he finally said, tone too casual, fingers drumming the armrest. He knew damn well who I was, and he was playing pretend. I forced a thin smile. "Something like that." His gaze lingered, probing. The chair across from him was plush but unyielding. I sat ramrod straight. The room smelled of aged paper and citrus oil, yanking me back to command deck's varnish. Reports. The tang of suppressed fear. I studied him, bridging the gap between this frail tycoon and the operative who'd stood before me amid the flames of Operation Sandstorm, a botched outpost raid in a godforsaken desert. He'd come with a file, shame etched on his face. "They'll pin it on who signed off." I'd replied, "That'd be me." He hadn't corrected the brass. When the inquiry hit, he ghosted. I took the heat, a commendation, then a gag order. Clearance revoked. Command stripped. A fade to black. No parade. Just oblivion. The man now fiddled with his sweater, gazing out. You've stayed active. I nodded. Fighting back venom. We'll settle into a routine. Routine like erasing our shared past. Like he'd never helped scrub my name from the ledgers. I left soon after. Mind churning. Margaret knocked an hour later with another note. Admiral. That word outweighed my entire classified dossier. I cornered her in the kitchen, where she peeled apples for his tray. How long here? 16 years, she said without looking up. Before that, I was your logistics NCO. Sandstorm up. The knife halted. We knew it wasn't on you. I swallowed hard. But you stayed quiet. She met my eyes. He claimed credit. But those in the know. We remembered. The ache rose. They didn't just demote me. They ghosted my legacy. She arranged the fruit. Yet here you stand. That night, in the too-soft bed under vaulted ceilings, the pieces settled. They'd silenced me not for error, but for refusing the game. No bootlicking. No scapegoating. History favors the bold, I whispered. And the cheats. Another knock. Dinner with Mr. Hale. We'd shared foxholes. Now, fine china. One of us forgot the peril in that. The dining room was a tomb of elegance. Silver glinting under chandelier light like interrogation tools. Margaret hovered like a sentinel. Hale gestured to the seat beside him. I approached, each step echoing judgment. My water glass warped his reflection, fitting for our distorted bond. He poured wine, eyeing me. Tough shift from fleets to this. I held a stare. Not as tough as feigning amnesia. There, the breach. He swirled his glass, unfazed. You always cut deep. Said little. Margaret served herb-crusted salmon, its aroma clashing with the tension. He sliced in. I didn't draft the report. No, I countered. You just let it stand. His fork hovered. I leaned in. You knew the cost of that quiet and paid nothing. The shift was palpable. Not fury, but raw admission. For a mogul like Hale. That was thunder. I trust few, he said. But you. Stay. Help steer my affairs. I set down my utensil. That trust raised my world once. This is guilt, not grace. Silence swallowed the meal. I left without pardon. He didn't protest. In my room, I gripped a pen. Hands unsteady. 2 knocks, Margaret with an envelope. My name in script from decades ago. Inside, a copy of my Sandstorm reprimand, The Career Killer. And signed at the bottom. No signee. Just a void where accountability died. They'd called it a filing glitch. Now, it screamed setup. The document glowed under lamplight. Edges yellowed. Ink ghostly. I pored over it all night. Spotting mismatches, dates off. Code skewed. No trial. Just a slip of paper dooming me. My phone buzzed. Lydia. I answered on the 3rd ring. Evelyn. You're set up there now. Hale's minted. Right? Mom and Dad could use a hand mortgage. Bills. Not discussing this. She pressed. Voice edged. You've got means now. Don't be selfish. Selfish, I said coolly. You never asked what I sacrificed. Only take now 'cause you smell cash. Pause. Then her sharp laugh. You've always played the martyr. No, Lydia. I just quit the act. Click. Half an hour later, Margaret appeared with a manila folder. From the West Archives. Inside, bills, notes, and a VA benefits claim in my name. But beneficiary? Lydia. Approved. Cashed. Dated post-retirement. My name. Her pocket. I sank into a chair. They didn't erase me. They cashed me out. Hours vanished in cross-checks. Photos. Backups. Ignorance is bliss, I muttered. Silence a shield. But truth? It tracks. At the folder's end, a tribunal memo, signed by a name now on Senate campaign signs. So that's the Barry job, I whispered. His rise on my grave. Dawn broke over my desk. Papers fanned like battle maps. I'd commanded ops from less. Now, a personal siege. No vengeance, just records. I drafted an anonymous whistleblower packet, scans of the unsigned rep, forged claims, tampered emails, redacted smartly. Enough to hook investigators. Then, buried in the stack, a VA deposit confirmation for Dad. Under my service number. I'd never seen a dime. That year. His new truck. House run-offs, I'd chalked it to savings. Now, theft. Pure and papered. I held it. Fingers numb. They didn't ghost me. They profited. Odella, wait. Margaret brought coffee. No questions. At 9:37, she returned with a USB. Plug this in. Emails. Contractor to tribunal staff. She's a political liability. Shift the narrative. Easier cleanup. Not guilt fit. It was never my actions, I breathed. It was my spine. Copies made. Encrypted. Stashed. I called Lydia's voicemail. I know the forgeries. The deposits. Fax only. No heat. Just ice. Out the window. A gardener trimmed hedges. His world neat. Mine? Fracturing open. I didn't yell. I weaponized their silence, honed. Aimed. As Desmond Tutu once said. Raise your argument. Not your voice. Mine was ironclad. That afternoon. Tea in hand. A courier knocked. Sealed envelope. Invitation to a veterans gala. Embossed. From the tribunal chair, now a poll on the rise. He remembered. Question was he ready for my RSVP? I arrived at the Arlington Veterans Center 5 minutes early. The air thick with anticipation. Like a courtroom before verdict. Banners fluttered. Mics tested. Volunteers buzzing like extras in a bad drama. The hall felt judgmental, grand windows. Grander deceptions. I stepped out. A discreet service ribbon pinned, not for show. But statement. I'd earned it in fire, today. In their arena. Lydia spotted me first. Front row. Clipboard queen with a headset like she ran the Pentagon. She turned. Lips curling. You came. Good. Don't steal the spotlight, you're not the hero. I leaned close. Never claimed to be. But I won't let you edit me out. She blinked. Silent, her loudest tell. That morning. An anon email. Lydia's fresh filing for my financial guardianship. Citing grief-induced instability. Not protection, power grab. From the side. Hale wheeled in. Looking shrunken. Eyes darting. I advised against inviting you, he muttered passing. Yet here we stand. The event kicked off. Chaplain's platitudes. Off-key anthem. Tributes. Flashes. The chair, my old inquisitor, took the mic. Beaming like a campaign ad. Now. Honoring quiet service, MS. Lydia Harlan. Applause. Lydia ascended. All poise and pilfered glory. I rose. Not to halt. But to emerge. Midway to the stage. Murmurs rippled. Phones rose. My ribbon gleamed. Lydia faltered midword. The room iced. Softly. I cut, before the plaque. Ask, service or suppression. Glass shattered, hails. The pole paled. Lydia gaped. They'd built a platform for optics. I claimed it for truth. The mic crackled. The only noise in the shrunken space. They expected attendance. Not assertion. Lydia clutched her script. Mask cracking, funeral face slipping. The chair coughed. MS. Harlan. Continue. But I stayed on me. I drew the folded paper. This, Internal Navy Bulletin. 12 years back. The AV tech, bless her nerve, projected it, me in fatigues. Mid-rescue. Headline, Command Valor in Sandstorm, internal only. Audience leaned. This never went public, I said levelly. Not forgotten, just filed away. The chair sweated. Screen flickered, wrong drive plugged, Hale's video confession. His face loomed, I let her take the fall. She led, I hid. Gasps. Phones lit. I stayed silent. I'm sorry. Lydia blanched. Video cut. I faced the crowd, for every woman scrubbed from records. Mistaken for mute, this is yours. Applause built. Genuine. The chair stammered, unscheduled. Truth rarely is, I replied. He retreated. Lydia fled the stage. Heels echoing defeat. Hale gripped his chair. Eyes down, fine by me. A woman approached post-event. Recorder off. Off-record chat? I nodded. A decade to fade me, an afternoon to resurrect. My phone buzzed pre-dawn. Nervous as a recruit. 63 texts. 14 calls. My name viral in vet circles, not trending. But etched. Ex-Sergeant, you were my CO. Changed me. Yesterday? Why I enlisted. Another, I was at the inquiry. Wrong to mute. I'll vouch now. The weight shifted, not gone. But shared. Injustice simmers, I whispered. Truth waits. Margaret entered with the paper, front page. Me mudstreaked in sandstorm. Carrying a wounded Marine. Caption, the silenced Admiral speaks. Internal photo leaked raw proof. Tears came. Not from pain. But recall. By noon. Online frenzy, ceremony clips. Hale's mea culpa. Lydia's freeze. Backlash hit, her podcast defense, family legacy protection, met with scorn. Frauds no oopsie. Leaked financials showed deposits under my name. Evening solitude in quarters. Replaying footage. Hale averted eyes. Lydia sought validation desperately. Guilt polishes or shatters mirrors. A letter slipped under, shaky script from a saved soldier's kin. Owe you my dad's life. Saw your pic, knew those eyes. Carried silence too long. No sign-off. But truth handwritten. Late but landed. Justice whispers sometimes. I held it like a flag, grief now an ally. Not anchor. Another envelope pre-breakfast. Hale's script. You deserved better. Sparse. Perfect. Filed away, not erased. Archived. Midday news. Tribunal poll retires for health truths toll. Lydia's org lost sponsors. Restructuring. Hale probed for biases. Cover-ups. No gloat, just arrival. That night by the fire. Phone rang. Women's Vet Coalition. Consult on Erased Histories Division? Not a token, I said. Policymaker. They agreed, voice. Not face. Sun sliced my desk like a divide. Phone rang, family rhythm. Entitled. I answered. Evelyn, Lydia rehearsed. Saw your gig. Huge. Don't forget roots. Haven't, I said flat. Just outgrew the welcome. Silence. Then breath, unsaid words. Call ended. I opened the old box, kid relics. Unopened mom card, blink inside. Forgiveness? Release. Not rewind. Parents' invite arrived, a men's dinner. Gilded excess. I penned, closures no address. Mailed back. Bridges viewed afar, charred. But clear. Next day. Boardroom. 12 women. Forged spines. Not figurehead, I declared. Dismantle the need. Chairwoman. Fire and clarity. Power claimed. Not granted. Evening courier, soft package. No note. Photo, my unit. Final op, me commanding. Hail there. Behind, unpinned medal. Acknowledgement. Not absolution. Enough. The DC conference room pulsed with purpose, no flags. Just agendas. At the head. I called, final vote. Admiral's Echo, Division born. Applause for the overlooked. Press wrapped, suit approached, Hale's bequest, full foundation to your initiative. Murmurs. Flashes. She stood when we Saturday. No war won, just silence outlasted. Outside. Lydia waited. Shades perched. Still sisters. Blood's not bond. Actions are. Yours? Elsewhere. Flinch. Nod. Gone. Boundary. Not bite. Arlington Memorial. Medal placed at a fallen comrade's name. Legacy's truth. Not trinkets. Erased in ink. Etched in stone. Pocket empty. I walked ready. They buried my story, I raised it as a standard.